In the headlines, 52 families received keys to their new homes at the Petite Savanne Resettlement in Bellevue-Chopin. The Electoral Commission says it is poised to roll out the National Identification Card system once the necessary legal amendments are made. And over 3,000 farmers identified under the National Validation Exercise of the Ministry of Agriculture. I'm Andrea Louis with the Channel 5 News. Back with the details after this.
Imagine you have Hollywood at your command. Introducing Flow Evil.
Red cheese, gold rings, all black, everything creeping through the night.
Anywhere you are.
Big girls don't scream hard like Halloween, make me feel alive.
There's a world of entertainment here, and you run the show. Flow Evil.
Here are some tips to reduce mosquito presence in and around your home. Keep water storage containers properly covered. Remove containers that can collect water from your surroundings. Keep garbage bins tightly covered. Pick up your litter and remove all tires from your yard. Keep gutters free of leaves and twigs to prevent stagnant water. Prevent Zika, dengue, and chikungunya. Fight the bite. This is a public service announcement from the Dominica Red Cross.
This message is supported by Flow.
Thank you for staying with us. First up, Prime Minister Skerrit delivered keys to 52 families of Petite Savanne Resettlement in Bellevue-Chopin on Tuesday afternoon.
These 52 families are among those displaced by Tropical Storm Erika 3 years ago. The Prime Minister told recipients his administration keeps its promises. He described the project as potentially the best in the Caribbean. The Prime Minister said this is a project that has never been done before and thanked MMCE for their partnership in sheltering Dominica. Turning his attention to the upcoming election, Mr. Skerrit said Dominica's future, welfare and well-being was at a critical juncture, and Dominicans should approach their right to vote thoughtfully and seriously. 90 homes have been delivered to date. The next batch of completed residences will be handed over the second week of April.
In other top stories, Chairman of the Electoral Commission says his office is awaiting the implementation of the statutory amendment to roll out the National Identification Card system. Gerald Burton made the statement during this year's second Eggs and Issues breakfast of the Dominica Association of Industry and Commerce DAIC on Tuesday. Burton says the call for a national identification card system has been made for several years and will help improve the accuracy of the voters list while remedying the problems which elections officers encounter.
The record indicates that since the 1980s, successive electoral commissions and chief elections officers have sought funding from the executive for the purchase and implementation of an identification card system. Funding was eventually provided a few years ago, firstly as part of the OECS-led multi-purpose identification card system, and later when the OECS initiative ran into difficulties as part of the direct initiative of the Electoral Commission itself.
Burton says through the approval of over $3 million by government, the Commission now has in its possession all equipment needed to roll out the National Identification Card system and confirm identification should a voter forget his card.
If someone shows up without their card at the polling station or verification is required at the polling station, in each polling station we have at the electoral office handheld devices which we could use to provide that level of verification. The equipment is safely stored, I have no doubt, by our able Chief Elections Officer, and we hope will not become obsolete by the time decisions are made to utilize such equipment. All that is missing as part of the equation is the implementation of the statutory amendments for bringing the system into effect.
Burton says if Dominica were to establish an identification card system, the country would join a majority of other Caribbean nations which have the same system.
The Commission therefore sought the introduction of an identification system with accompanying cards which would include the biometric data of each elector, to include, along with his name and registration number, his signature or other mark, his picture, and his fingerprint. This would put us in step with the vast majority of other Commonwealth Caribbean countries which have already implemented such processes.
The DAIC Eggs and Issues Breakfast was held under the theme, The Electoral Process, Our Collective Responsibility. On to agricultural developments. Close to 4,000 farmers have been identified under the National Validation Exercise of the Ministry of Agriculture. The exercise was launched in August last year with the aim of ending by October that year. However, challenges were experienced during the process which delayed results. Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Dr. Reginald Thomas, says to date, information is still being collated from the validation exercise.
We have gone out for several months now and we have interviewed 3,450 farmers, which is not far from what we saw even when we looked back at the figures that came from the World Bank intervention. It's not very far when we look at the fishers and the farmers. We looked at about 4,000 farmers and fishers under the World Bank program, but we have seen about 3,450 of the crop farmers, crop and livestock farmers. So we think we are in tune in terms of what is on the ground.
Thomas says along with this project, the ministry is developing a more sophisticated data collection system.
We are inputting a lot of that data. We had to rebuild our database infrastructure. We also have other interventions taking place from the ministry where we have looked at data management from a ministerial point of view and not just individual units. So we have brought on the data officers from the two main units, that is the Division of Agriculture, the Fisheries Department, and we have Mr. Elwin assisting. So we're actually piloting a small data management system where we have developed an app that we would be able to give to our officers and even farmers that we can feed information there.
Information gathered through this process will better assist the ministry in helping farmers on the island. Early last year, grant funding was provided by the World Bank to assist farmers and fisherfolk here. Minister for Agriculture Reginald Austrie says one of the main problems that program faced was the lack of proper data.
We had some challenges in the execution of that program, and that was due mainly because of our weak database at the Ministry of Agriculture level, where we were not certain, to be honest with you, as to accurately that is, as to who were small farmers and who were commercial farmers and who were farmers. So we had some issues and some challenges with that, which we're now seeking to sort out, where we're seeking to record in detail our farmers, where they are, how many acres they're doing, where they're planting, their ages, and so on. So we can have a complete dossier on each and every farmer on this island. So the event that we need to run to our database to quickly gather information, inside or outside the disasters period, we have our technicians who can, within 1 minute, pull out the information. We also had issues where some of the persons who registered would not have qualified under the World Bank policy. They would not have qualified. And some people also registered late for the program. There was a cutoff period by December of 2018. And many farmers did not meet that cutoff period for various reasons.
In entertainment news now, winner of the DDA's Preservation of Buyo Music Award has promised to continue promoting the art form.
Krishna Dada Lawrence received the award from the Discover Dominica Authority and Dominica Festivals Committee during the recent Carnival Awards ceremony. Lawrence says he recognizes his responsibility to the country and other music producers to continue pushing the Buyon art form.
When you achieve such great accolades, then there's always a responsibility. You have to be a leader first and foremost, and I am always open to upcoming and new or existing people that want to know more about music business. That's important, because if I didn't know about the business of music and how it works, then I wouldn't be able to fully take advantage of all of the opportunities that that song is creating I also have a mentorship program for musicians. Yeah, I have a couple of guys that I work with, young guys in the business, that I showing them the ropes and teaching them the software and all this thing. So yeah, I have already accepted my leading role already.
Lawrence's work has been receiving regional recognition for years now, as his music has won Soca Monarch and Road March titles in various Caribbean countries. He says collaboration is key in pushing the industry forward, as the entertainment sector is a huge income earner for the region.
We have the internet, we have all kind of things going out there, people interested in it. So obviously what we need to do is look at it as from a business perspective and see how we can benefit from collaborations, as opposed to staying away and avoiding collaboration with them. The fact that the government could, the various governments could seize that opportunity, the Vinci government and Dominica government, it just shows that the creative sector is an industry that we need to pay attention to. As Marsha keep on saying that in Trinidad, that we need to pay attention in the Caribbean to the creative sectors, because that is after when oil finish and banana finish and them kind of thing, culture will always be there and people always want culture. That's why so much people come into the Caribbean for carnivals and for music festivals and all them kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a thing that we need to expound on and invest more in.
Meantime, Minister for Tourism and Culture Robert Tong says government has taken notice of the influence of bouyon music on the country and the region, and government supports this local genre.
In Cabinet, the Prime Minister said, hey guys, you need to work on this. Bouyon definitely has a lot of potential. Our artists have a lot of potential. Our music has, I think, the most amazing potential. But we have to come together and we have to work together with all of the artists, all of the persons who are putting this together, to see how we can allow you to make, I like to use the word more money, but to benefit each and every one of you in a better way. So the opportunity is there. And the Ministry of Culture will be having a couple of sessions very soon to see how best we can put things together, how best we can assist you based on the information that you are going to give us. We will also get some other persons who have been successful to come down and work with us to see how we can help you push yourself to the ultimate next level.
So far for 2019, Lawrence is receiving major recognition for producing the mega hit soca song, Family.
Members of the Dominica Nurses Association continued protesting poor working conditions on Tuesday, this time outside the Princess Margaret Hospital. The nurses met outside of the Ministry of Health on Monday and continued their fight to draw attention to their concerns. Among their grievances, mold and termite infestation and inadequate security for nurses. They are also claiming victimization. Here they are outside the hospital on Tuesday morning.
Better pay. We want answers. We need security. We want answers. Marigot needs a hospital. We want answers. Marigot needs a health center. We want answers.
Tuesday's 2-hour protest was in part meant to elicit answers from the medical authorities. You are watching the Channel 5 News. Stay tuned for more after the break.
If you're HIV positive or have an STI, having unprotected sex with multiple partners puts them in grave danger. You'll expose every partner and their present and future partners to HIV or another STI. Use a condom every time you have sex. You can live a productive life even if diagnosed with HIV. Remember, early detection is key to your survival. Be responsible, protect yourself and others. Help stop the spread of HIV and other STIs.
Welcome back. Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonzalez, says the fact that 5 Caribbean leaders unilaterally decided to meet with U.S. President without CARICOM members was troubling.
5 leaders of Caribbean nations met with the U.S. President Friday to discuss how the U.S. could be more involved in the region. As the current chairman of CARICOM, the Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis was not invited to the meeting. There was no true representation of the region. Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Alan Chasney, President of the Dominican Republic, Danilo Medina, Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness, Haitian President Jovenel Moïse, and Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Hubert Minnis, met with the U.S. President. These leaders are supportive of the Trump administration's stance on Venezuela. They have also aligned themselves to the Lima Group, a part of the Organization of American States, which has been aligning itself with the U.S. by recognizing the opposition lawmaker Juan Guaido as the so-called interim president of Venezuela instead of the democratically elected President Nicolas Maduro. Gonzalez says for such a meeting to be a true CARICOM representation, you must at least have the chairman of CARICOM so that any discussion on Venezuela actually represents what CARICOM wants. CARICOM has always stood against intervention in Venezuela and opposed U.S. sanctions on the South American country. According to Gonzalez, the actions of the U.S. concerning Venezuela, he sees it as a creeping coup d'etat against a legitimate government, and CARICOM will not fall victim to this entrapment. The 5 leaders who met with Trump spoke of energy and energy agreements. The Petro-Carib agreement allowed Caribbean nations to receive a stable supply of oil and gas from Venezuela. Gonzalez says we are not supporting the principle of non-intervention and non-interference and no threat of force or sanctions because we have a Petro agreement. We are doing so because of high principle and our commitment to international law.
And an Irish parliamentarian has raised the concerns over her country's support for the U.S.'s plan to impose a president on the people of Venezuela.
With the backing of the U.S., head of the National Assembly Juan Guaido declared himself interim president of Venezuela. Just last Friday, 5 Caribbean leaders met with the U.S. president in Florida for a meeting which was expected to discuss the Venezuelan crisis. The leaders were also invited to meet the U.S. president because of their stance on the Venezuelan crisis. But not every parliamentarian in Europe, for example, supports their government's endorsement of the U.S. plan to replace Maduro.
So what's the criteria of democracy now, according to the Irish government? Whatever the Americans decide on a certain morning, whoever they decide to back, well, that's all right, Jack, that's good enough for us. Now, Venezuelan economy is in a very difficult place at the moment. The recent visit by the UN Special Rapporteur made the point that modern-day economic sanctions and blockades are comparable with medieval sieges of towns with the intention of forcing them to surrender. 21st sanctions, not to bring a town, this is to bring a sovereign country to its knees. And that's what this effort at sanctions is attempting, and it's the Venezuelan people who are suffering as a result.
The Irish politician says President Maduro is unable to make any significant changes to the plight of his people as long as the sanctions remain in place.
The society is incredibly divided, so there has to be talks, there has to be negotiations, but in order to do that properly, the sanctions themselves have to be called off. They have to be allowed to develop their economy without the blackmail of that situation continuing. And I think, you know, for us to take part in the undermining of a sovereign nation is a terrible indictment for us who almost, you know, in the same breath recognise 100 years of parliamentary democracy here in Ireland. It's absolutely shocking.
Imagine you have Hollywood at your command. Introducing Flow Evil.
Red cheese, gold rings, all black, everything creeping through the night.
Anywhere you are,
Big girls don't scream hard like Halloween, make me feel alive.
there's a world of entertainment here, and you run the show. Flow Evil.
Here are some tips to reduce mosquito presence in and around your home. Keep water storage containers properly covered. Remove containers that can collect water from your surroundings. Keep garbage bins tightly covered. Pick up your litter and remove all tires from your yard. Keep gutters free of leaves and twigs to prevent stagnant water. Prevent Zika, dengue, and chikungunya. Fight the bite. This is a public service announcement from the Dominica Red Cross.
This message is supported by Flow.
To end the news, the headlines again. 52 families receive the keys to their new homes at the Petit Savan Resettlement in Bellevue-Chopin. The Electoral Commission says it is poised to roll out the National Identification Card system once the necessary legal amendments are made. And over 3,000 farmers identified under the National Validation Exercise of the Ministry of Agriculture. Feel free to contact us at news.marpin2k4.com. You can also access our past newscasts on our YouTube channel. On behalf of the entire production team, I am Andrea Louis, and to all of our viewers around the world, thank you so much for watching. Join us next time.